We've been waiting ages to get him on the sofa. Jake Humphrey is finally joining us at pole position.
How are you?
Very good, thank
nice
you.
To see
Thanks
you.
for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm sorry I'm all suited and booted. I've come fresh from an audience with the Duchess of Cambridge.
Oh, well, we quite like that.
But I would have dressed up for you anyway.
Adding a bit of class to the pole position sofa. That's what we like. Oh, nice, nice. I'll raise my game for the occasion. Now, most of our viewers will know you from the F1 world when you were with BBC. Now you're with BT Sport. But maybe we'll have a little talk about your YouTube channel.
Yes, why not?
How's that going?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, hello everyone who's subscribed to my YouTube channel and the many thousands that you've got. And, you know, yours laughs in my face. But I've only been doing it for a short amount of time. And it's, do you know what? I just love the fact that finally, because, you know, to be totally honest, when you're the BBC's Formula 1 presenter, you're not really supposed to have an opinion on which driver you like or dislike.
No bias.
Or who you want to win the title, who you don't want to win the title. But naturally you do, and fans are forever saying to me in person when I was travelling around the world with Formula 1, you know, which driver do you really want to win this race? Who do you really want to win the title? And I could tell them, I could never say it in front of the masses, whereas now I'm sort of in a position where I can be quite honest and
just let it all go.
Yeah, and so that's what I love actually about the channel. And the other thing is, you know, I've got these great contacts in my phone, and why not just use them and give them a quick ring? Because I think often when you're in the paddock and you're chatting to them there, you don't really get the sort of the truth effectively because they're at work and they're on the show. Whereas when I just ring them as mates and just have a chat on the phone to them, you get some good little answers.
So for people who haven't seen, let's find out who's in your black book. Who have you spoken to so far?
So basically what I do is I just grab my phone and I ring a friend from my time in Formula 1. So I rung Felipe Massa to find out about what it was like at Williams, Paul di Resta at the Monaco Grand Prix weekend, just to find out how he feels about not being in a car at the moment. Sterling Moss, obviously racing legend. My old mates David Coulthard and Eddie Jordan. I'll give you a little exclusive. I have got lined up for the British Grand Prix, the one and only Murray Walker.
Oh, so you've got to subscribe to the channel, I think.
Yeah, if you want to see that, you've got to subscribe. It'll be worth it. Murray's a good lad. So yeah, lots going on. It's good fun. Oh,
that's awesome. Now, let's talk about the 2014 season. Yeah. Now that you can comment, what do you make of it? All these battles that are going on.
I know, it's brilliant. I love the fact that Nico Rosberg has beaten Lewis in the last couple of races.
No!
Yeah, not because I don't want Lewis to win the title or I don't want him to win the races. It just heightens it. If Lewis had won in Monaco and then if Lewis hadn't retired this weekend, I honestly think he would have broken Rosberg's resolve. He would be gone, the title battle would be over.
In the bag.
Nico would be a broken man, Lewis would be a double Formula 1 world champion, and basically we could turn off our TVs now knowing what's going to happen. But the reality is, with Nico having done what he did in qualifying, accidentally of course, and then that
just point that out to the fans,
being on pole position, and then winning the race, and then Lewis obviously having to retire in Canada. I think it leaves us in a position where Lewis has to fight and chase and harry and just be the aggressor for the title.
And it gives us some excitement.
Absolutely, and I think Lewis would be a better chaser than Nico Rosberg, if that makes sense. I think if Nico was in Lewis's position, I don't think he'd be able to challenge, but I think Lewis is the better driver, and I think he will be able to challenge Nico from where he is now, and it's going to just set it up so nicely. So
much excitement, and that leads us actually very nicely on to our tweets. We've put a hashtag out there, P1 Asks Jake, and you've all got in touch, so we've got some questions to get through. The first one from Formula 1 Chick, on the subject of Mercedes. What's the best solution to keep a happy camp at Mercedes?
Okay, hello,
is
Formula 1 Chick. I don't think there is a solution, no. I think what you're seeing, and it was something that really was brought home to me in my time in Formula 1, is seeing these guys in the cut and thrust of a championship battle, and to see them, you know, on the world stage, the best in the business. They've spent their whole lives getting ready for this. It just is incredible, the pressure that they're under. And I don't think that you can have two guys that really want to be world champions alongside each other and have a happy camp. And I wouldn't want it to be a happy camp. You know, you have to imagine, if you do your job, right, and every day at the end of your day at work, your boss comes to you and goes, right, that's what your colleague did that was better than you.
You'd be freaking out every time.
Them? And then as you walk out the front door of your office, there's loads of cameras and people taking photos going, why were you a bit bad at work today? Why did you struggle at work?
Why were you worse than him?
Why weren't you very good at work today? And then you go home and you put the news on, and there's your interview on the news, and the newsreader says, oh, XYZ was rubbish at work today. How does that make you feel? That's what it's like being a Formula 1 driver. You're constantly not just compared to how good people want you to be, you're compared to your teammates. And it just creates this incredible rivalry, whether it's Prost Senna or whether it's Nico Lewis. and they go back a long way and they're still rowing.
And you think Toto Wolff can handle it? Do you think he's the man for the job to keep their cool?
I do. I have to say, a massive credit to Mercedes. Whatever they're doing, they're handling it brilliantly, because I hate it when a driver dominates a Formula 1 season, because I just think it removes some of the excitement from the fight. But actually Mercedes are keeping it exciting by basically saying, do you know what, lads, don't hit each other.
Yeah, just get on with it.
Go out there and have some fun.
I mean, they even put a video up the other day about competition and the thumbnails of them like looking away, and they're like on little tiny scooters.
And I want Lewis and Nico alongside each other on the track, and I want Mercedes just to say, look, it's up to you, be sensible.
Because they are out there, aren't they? They're ahead of the pack, so at least if they're causing some excitement up front, that's still...
Yeah, do you know what? If Mercedes had thrown team orders into the mix already, it would be a pretty disappointing season so far, because really, you know, it is Mercedes. Mercedes will win the drivers and the constructors battle.
Anyone else standing out for you? We were talking about it earlier. I suppose Mercedes just owning the headlines, but anyone else?
Daniel Ricciardo. Unbelievable, right? I've been sending him quite a few messages, and every single time he just comes back with, he just replies with, "Oh, thanks, mate. I'm just so chuffed. I still can't believe I'm there." You know, he genuinely is like how you or I would be if we were racing in Formula 1. We're just totally excited, but with it, he has incredible talent.
Oh, and, so good.
You know, I think that for Seb to have dominated Mark Webber and dominated every other driver as he did in the last few years, and then for Daniel to come in and basically be owning Sebastian Vettel, is really good for Daniel. It's really good for the sport. It also lets you see how good Jean-Eric Vergne is in the Toro Rosso, actually, because he was going toe-to-toe with Daniel. So that's an interesting dynamic. And biggest disappointment with Kimi Raikkonen, you know, just that is not working out.
He's just not managed to get it together, has he?
No.
And actually, I think that shows Alonso manages to get so much more out of the car than Raikkonen. If you think two world champions now. Yeah, you're right. I mean, Fernando is the most incredibly talented driver. I remember once being driven around the Maranello track by him, and I made the mistake of holding on to the passenger seat because he was going quite quick. And so he said that there's nothing to be worried about. And that's a bad Spanish accent. And then he shut his eyes and drove a couple of the corners with his eyes closed. And then opened his eyes again and said, "See, that's how well I know the track." And I was like, okay, I shouldn't have questioned your mastery of a car. Yeah. No worries. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. And actually, you mentioned about Massa. You thought he was going to be on pole for the Canadian Grand Prix. I had a sneaky suspicion that Felipe was going to do something special. Well, he led. He was the first one to lead the race, wasn't he, for the whole season? Could have been on the podium. He just has no luck in Canada. No luck generally at the moment. I'm a massive Williams fan, and I really think that driver pairing is great. But it's just that for some reason, you know, Felipe is lacking a bit of luck. But thank goodness, you know, him and Perez are okay after that crash. Yes, and Ricciardo, so sweet, asking if he could celebrate. I know, isn't that nice? That's so nice. What a nice man. Measure of the man. He's a gentleman. Properly special guy. Now, we've spoken about F1 quite a lot. Let's move our attention to Matt Lay's tweet. He's saying, "Do you follow the BTCC? And if so, who are your top 3 drivers?" Do you like your Yeah, I love my BTCC. Yeah, this weekend I took my little baby daughter to the beach because it was lovely weather, so I had to record it. So I recorded the Canadian Grand Prix and all the BTCC stuff and stayed off Twitter until I got home, so no one gave me the result. And then I watched the Canadian Grand Prix, followed by all 3 of the British Touring Car races. And I think it's brilliant, you know. It is proper wheel to wheel, bumper to bumper, a bit of rubbing, and it's really aggressive. I think it's great. And the drivers are good characters as well. The drivers are good characters. This year especially. And also, you know, we know that if you've got a fast car, they'll give you a bit of ballast, they'll slow you down, they might do something if you're really slow. It's the kind of sport where they understand that they are there to entertain the masses, and they do it absolutely brilliantly. I think Alan Gow and the whole BTCC are doing an amazing job. Do you think that's something F1 could emulate? Switching orders and things like that? There's been talk of it. Yeah. It's a difficult one because I see Formula 1 as slightly purer. You know, in F1 you're designing the best cars in the world with the best drivers, and you're going out and saying, right, off you go. You know, I don't think a reverse grid kind of situation would work for Formula 1. You know, you might have you'd have more overtaking, admittedly. You know, a lot of people who aren't into motorsport think it's a funny thing that you take the best guy and you give him a head start in a race. It's a bit like starting a football season and saying, right, you know, Manchester City, you can already have 5 points, you're already in the lead because you're the best. It is a strange thing to do, but I can't see any other way around it. But I think in other forms of motor racing, particularly when you can have a bit of a bash and a bump on your way through, I think it works really well for touring cars. So, top 3 drivers from the BTCC? Top 3 drivers. I'm a really good mate of Flash. So I'd have to say that, you know, he gets the number 1. Okay. So Gordon Shedden is my number 1. Love him. Number 2, Jason Plato, just because he's been around for years. And he's such a little chatter, and he's a good laugh.
and if you go on a night out with him, make sure you've eaten something beforehand, because he's good fun on a night out as well.
They're all quite good fun on night out.
Night out turns into a week out with Jason, which is good. And I tell you, I'd pick as my number 3 is a guy called Mark Hines, who's come into BTCC this year, and he's getting to grips with the front-wheel drive car, and he's getting used to, you know, bashing.
Front wheel having trouble, actually.
Yeah, they are.
Rear wheel are really benefiting.
Yeah, you're right. But he's a single-seater guy, really, and I know him because he was involved in Marussia, so I spent a lot of time with him in Formula One, and as a youngster, he was a really talented guy, very successful, and you know, it's good that he's got the chance to get back in a car. Yeah, so yeah, keep your eye on Mark Hines.
Okay, there you go, Matt Lay. There's your answer to that
Pleasure,
question.
Matt.
Very nice. Moving on to James Frankland. He sent in a tweet saying, "What's your favourite cheese?"
Excellent.
This highbrow show.
This was the kind of incisive journalism that I was hoping that I would get to be involved in.
And we have delivered.
What is my favourite cheese? Depends what sort of day it is, doesn't it? I like a strong cheese. I quite like...
Soft or hard?
So
See, this is the sort of thing we've got to boil it down to.
Again, is that kind of question that I was expecting. I would have to say hard.
Hard cheese, okay.
Yeah, and Gruyere is something that I'm a big fan of.
Ooh, tasty.
Yeah.
And do you have it on everything cheese? Are you one of those sort of people that adds a bit to it broccoli?
Yeah, my favourite trick with cheese is to go with cheese on a fish finger sandwich. Try it.
Ooh, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And if I'm going to go soft, it's always camembert over brie because it's got more flavour.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Got quite particular actually there with your cheese choice. Okay, good.
Yeah,
well,
I quite like a bit of cheese.
James Frankland, you now know what to give Jake if he ever comes for supper at your house. Doug Amner. Hello, Doug. Should there be double points in the last race, Jake? What do you think?
Yeah, well, thanks for your question, Doug. And I thought this might crop up. I just think it's a joke, actually. I just hate...
It's a bit of a gizmo.
Oh, I don't get it. What's wrong with the situation as it is at the moment? Why do you want to suddenly say, do you know what, win this particular race and you'll fly into the lead? It's because I think Sebastian Vettel's won the title for the last few years, and I don't want another season of domination. Yeah. The reality is they've still got a season of domination, but it might be that either Nico or Lewis steals the title in that race. And I personally think that if it's a double points race and whoever wins that race wins the title by a point or two, it's going to feel very strange.
Can you imagine if it was one of the Mercedes that leapfrogged the other at the last race?
That's the only thing that can happen.
Christmas party would be pretty grim.
I just don't think you need to mess around with it too much. As I said before, I think Formula One is the beauty of it is that it's pure racing and it needs to remain that. I don't think it needs too much clever stuff going on. There are other forms of racing you can watch.
Too much trickery.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, like Formula E, they were talking the other day about on the last lap, whichever driver's been mentioned the most on Twitter. Yeah. Gets an extra boost of power.
Push to pass.
Because you know what? It's a new race series. They're capitalising on the young audience who are all on Twitter and all using social media. If it spices up and makes it exciting, great, I'm all for that. But don't start messing around with Formula One in the same way. It's not right.
Leave it pure. You're a purist.
Yeah.
A purist that likes camembert.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Right, CJ Algard has got in touch. What was your scariest moment trackside when you were with the BBC for F1?
I think probably every time I was about to ask Eddie Jordan a question.
That's scary. Quite a lot. That's like 98% of your time.
What would often happen is we'd be on a VT and he'd pull his earpiece out with about 20 seconds left and he'd say,
you're thinking,
what are you going to ask me? And I'd tell him the question and he'd put his earpiece back in and he'd sit there for a minute and work out and I'd be looking at him thinking Eddie is finally coming up with a cracking answer. Then with about 5 seconds left he'd take his earpiece out and he'd say, what am I going to say?
Oh my gosh.
And I'd be like, Eddie, I can't ask the question and answer the question.
Hold up flashcards for him every time.
It was good fun, really good fun, EJ. He has a band, you know.
Yeah, we've seen him in action at Silverstone.
I bet you have.
I'd like that. No.
But the real answer to that was in the Turkish Grand Prix, I made myself look like a prize prat. I stood in the pit lane and I delivered this thing to camera saying, right now, what's special about Turkish trackers? It's anti-clockwise, so you have to look the other way down the pit lane to make sure it's safe before you cross the pit lane. And 10 seconds later, I looked the wrong way and stepped out in front of Jarno Trulli in his Toyota as he's coming down doing 100 kilometres an hour straight to my shins, which probably would have taken my legs off.
Oh my God.
And the floor manager who was with us leapt in front of the camera live on air, grabbed me and hauled me back as Jarno Trulli rolled in front of us.
Thank goodness. Otherwise we might not have got you on the sofa. That would have been a disaster. It would have been pavement pizza.
Awful. Would have been very painful.
Right, so that's scary. So I think that slightly overtakes the Eddie Jordan moments. Okay, well, almost. Luke Barry. Luke says, what was the best thing about being the BBC F1 presenter?
Best thing? getting right into the world of Formula One. And I remember when I got the job, they announced that I was the F1 presenter about 10 o'clock on one Thursday morning. They did the press release, and at 10:30 my phone rang, and I answered it, and I was like, hello, and it was my wife, and she was in floods of tears.
What are you doing?
She was crying, and I said, what's the matter? And she goes, oh, I've just been on the internet, and everyone thinks you're going to be rubbish.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I said, sweetheart.
What, you were thinking she's going to be missing you?
Yes, exactly. I said, where did you read it? And she said, on the BBC website. And so I went onto the BBC message boards, and there were literally thousands of messages from people saying, who is this lanky twerp who has graduated from kids telly and has got a job as the BBC's F1 presenter? This is ludicrous.
And he knows a lot about football.
Yeah, and so I basically, I said to them, look, I'm a normal guy from a little village in Norfolk, and all I want to do is do the job as good as possible and do justice to the fact that I'm following in the footsteps of Steve Ryder and Murray Walker and James Hunt, and helping to host Formula One coverage.
I think you did all right.
Yeah, well, that's all I ever wanted to do. Okay. Was just to bring people from their living rooms and get them closer to the sport. And I remember sort of probably the highlight for me was when Jenson won the title in 2009, and a woman wrote me a letter afterwards, and she said, I was in the garage with you and Jenson, and the atmosphere was amazing, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and finally I loved Jenson, and I got the chance to be there at the moment he won the world title, so thanks very much for everything you did. And I thought to myself, why didn't she come and say hello? Then I got to the bottom of the letter, and she'd written, so thanks very much for taking me from my living room and putting me in that garage. And I just thought, that is what this job is all about. And I got myself in trouble. The BBC were often being called into meetings by the teams because I was walking in the garage without permission, or I was touching the drivers' helmets, or the seat belts, or the steering wheels, and I wasn't allowed to. But I just thought that took people closer than ever before to the sport, and that was all my job was. I was a lucky guy. I was in the pit lane. Come with me, and let's try and get you as close to the action as possible. It's a bit like
Daniel Ricciardo. He shows he's enjoying it. You show you're enjoying it. Everyone wants your job, so let them enjoy it. The last thing I'm going to do is be the BBC's F1 presenter and moan about jet lag, or the fact that my flight was delayed, or that the airline lost my bags or something. It's like, get a life. You're so lucky to do that job, and I absolutely loved it. And one day do it again, maybe. Hey, right, okay, good. What a great job you had, still have. Oliver Jones, #44, a keen Lewis fan there, I think.
Yeah, I think so,
yes.
Yeah.
Did you have any superstitions before you went on air? Good question.
Yeah,
drivers do. Do you as a presenter?
I didn't really have any superstitions. I had a couple of things that we always did, because after the first few races we realised that David Coulthard was rather chilled out being on the TV. And I think it's because, for me, television gets my adrenaline going, right? That is about as much excitement as I need in my life. But I think if you've driven wheel to wheel through Eau Rouge with Michael Schumacher at 200 miles an hour,
everything
going
else
on the telly with me
and
Eddie Jordan is not going to get you particularly excited. So we used to, first couple of races I'd be like, so David, here we are in Melbourne, how does it feel? And he's like, aye, great, son, yep, love this particular track. So I used to say to him, look, you might think you're being exciting. You
need to rev this up, DC.
But rev it up. So we used to have this thing we said to each other just before we went on air, which was 20%, which basically meant be yourself, but 20% more. Just lift it, have a bit of energy, talk a bit quicker. Not Eddie, only David.
Yes, we don't want any more edginess or flowery
shirts. So we used to do that all the time. And the only other thing for me was that sometimes I would get nervous. Like sometimes I'd be standing there and I'd hear the PA counting down to the start of the opening titles and that famous riff from the chain. And I would have this sort of realisation that I'm about to go live in front of millions of people, and it is a proper responsibility being a Formula One presenter on the BBC. And so I just take a sort of breath in and just relax and just say to myself, look, if you get nervous, it's not going to help, so just chill out and just trust yourself, trust that the words will come, because we have no auto cue, the talk back was pretty intermittent, you're pretty cut off out there.
You're all alone.
Just relaxed, you're all alone. So just relax, chill out, trust yourself, and you'll be okay. And, I just about got away with it sometimes.
Definitely, definitely. So no superstitions, I like it. Just a breath. Just take a breath.
Just take a breath.
And finally, Miran. He's got in touch. What's your best and worst interview that you've had on the BBC?
It's a good question. That is a great question. Certainly the interview with Jenson Button is up there when he won the title in 2009. The interviews that I always preferred was the sort of live, fly by the seat of your pants, grab a driver in a moment.
Right, in the moment, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, people often say to me, oh, I don't really like Sebastian Vettel, I bet he's so arrogant, isn't he? Do you know what? He is one of the nicest guys you'll come across. He's aware how lucky he is to be in that job. He's got a brilliant sense of humour. Comes from a really good close-knit family. And what I like about him is that he is aware of the importance of what he's doing, and that actually he's making his mark in the Formula One world, which so few people have had a chance to do. And I remember when he won his second world title, which would have been in 2011, and we got him live in the pit lane, and we did a quick interview with him, and I said, well, Sebastian, before you go, we just want you to watch this, because you're now part of a rather exclusive club. And we showed him a VT of all the other men that had won back-to-back Formula One World Championship titles, and that was the exclusive club that he was joining, and he just stood there and started crying. Oh. And no other Formula One driver that I've ever interviewed has even been close to that, because they're machines. You know, like I look at Robert Kubica and I think, I wish that Robert Kubica had enjoyed that win in Canada more, because if he'd have known what may have happened to him a year or two down the line, that was his moment, that was his one Formula One win. But in Formula One, they never allow themselves that time. They go, right, I've won a race, now I'm going to focus on winning a championship, now I move on to the next stage.
And it's like,
be in the moment, appreciate what you've just done, appreciate where you are, and Seb was really good at doing that. So that was probably the highlight. The toughest interview.
I like how you rephrased that. Toughest rather than worst.
Yeah. I tell you what that would be. That would be Kimi Räikkönen's return to the sport.
I thought it might involve him at some point.
First race back, Australian Grand Prix. He had a rubbish qualifying session, and I tried to grab him live as we're walking through the paddock as he headed to the pen where they do all their interviews.
Did he just like biff you off?
He did ask me a question. He did answer my question, but it wasn't much of an answer. But I had a go. It was a gallant
attempt. You didn't have a Lee McKenzie one. That was awful.
That was tough. Yeah, that was tough. And do you know, she has the hardest job, I tell you, Lee, being in there, having to get the drivers as soon as they finish the race, and the adrenaline's pumping and stuff.
He was naughty. Yeah. That was a naughty interviewee.
It was, absolutely.
Well, there we go. That's the tweets. The hashtag P1 Asks Jake.
I enjoyed that.
Well, it's great. We like talking about F1 and racing, but talk us a little bit through the World Cup. Who are you backing? Who do you think is going to win? Yeah,
I think England are going to get out of the group, but not go much further than that. And I think it's going to be a South American country. It's obviously in Brazil. I think the pressure on Brazil is going to be too much. So I am backing Argentina. But I would say keep your eye on Uruguay. I think they've got a really good team. Belgium, brilliant, young, talented squad as well. So I'm looking forward to it all getting going.
But England, no.
Not going to win the World Cup, but
got more chance in the F1.
They'll do themselves proud, and to make up for it, Lewis Hamilton will win at Silverstone.
Well, that would be fantastic.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
I think he's going to go on a really good run now, Lewis. I think that he realised
consecutive wins from
now
on.
He has to, basically, doesn't he now? Yeah. And Rosberg will be well aware if he just keeps finishing races now.
He's just packing the points away. No more DNS for Lewis.
No.
So what can we expect on your channel coming up soon? We've got Murray Walker.
Yeah, you've got Murray Walker. Current Formula One drivers, a little bit of juicy gossip, and every now and then I do a few of my own sort of Q&As as well. And as I say, it's really nice just to be able to be totally honest and say exactly what I feel about the sport and what I think about things. So if you're interested, subscribe to the channel.
Absolutely. I think you would like it.
Yeah, it's not as good as yours and you, but I try my best.
Well, I think you're getting bigger, aren't you?
I have a go.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the sofa.
The famous red sofa.
Absolutely, best guest yet. Thank you very much. Subscribe to Jake's channel and Pole Positions while you're there.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you.
Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without.
We will be innovative.
We're aiming to